He is a Christian podcast. I'm your host, Roslyn. Welcome to another episode of the show. Happy Monday, sis. I'm recording this on Martin Luther King Day or birthday, girl. Why do I can't get my days together? But happy Monday to y'all. I am so excited to be recording. I'm a little behind on getting this podcast out to you. It's Martin Luther King Day, girl. Okay, let me honor Dr. Martin Luther King and have the days correct. But I am so excited to be recording this episode, y'all. I was down and out this weekend. I think I had food poisoning, which is not fun. I never get sick. It wasn't COVID, thank God. But having food poisoning is a whole nother, girl, just down and out for the count, like out, tapped out, seriously. So I'm recording this podcast on Monday. I feel a million times better. Thankful that I got the rest because I do feel super rejuvenated. But that was a whole ordeal. However, I have a couple announcements before we get started on this episode of the podcast. We're going to be talking about procrastination today, which is one of my favorite topics to really talk about as it relates to self-sabotage and procrastination, which y'all know I love to kind of dig into when it comes to talking about time management. But I have a couple of announcements. So for those of you that don't officially know, besides having the podcast and coaching, I have had the amazing opportunity to connect with two amazing girls that I love so much and admire, Tatum and Tamia of the Bless and Boss Up podcast and Kavaya Artrice of She Who Is Called mobile app, and they have a membership community together called The Society. And if you are someone who is either in business or not in business, but loves God and really wants to have a community of women that love God, seek after him, we have a membership community that they started a couple of years ago and asked me and another girl named Charlotte to join them in hosting. And it is so rich. Like, even being a part of it, I'm poured into because of the amount of information that's available, because of the time frame they've done it. They just have so many classes on business, how to start a business, how to start a community, how to do things online, but also how to make God the CEO of your business. But additionally to that, even separate from business, if you're someone that doesn't necessarily want to start a side hustle, they have so many resources on just connecting with God, Bible studies, and so many other things. And so if you've taken a time with God challenge with me in the past, as I've said before when I've done that challenge, I never know how to serve everyone after that. You would love the Society. So I'm going to leave a link to the join link in the show notes. You can join for free for 2 weeks. So if you can get a part of the community, go browse through all of the multitude of classes. I mean, I don't even know how many classes they have, but there are hundreds of women that are a part of this. And so all across the country, they do in-person events. They also have just silos like in their cities where they get together, and it's just a great community because everybody is so interactive with each other and just really want to pour in each other. So we have weekly classes. So I talk about mental health and productivity. Charlotte does bi-weekly Bible studies, but she also talks about a ton of different things as well. Kavaya talks a lot about lifestyle and really how to live for the Lord and really understand what it takes to just follow the Lord. Tatum talks a lot about business and making God the CEO of your business. So we do weekly classes all together. We have prayer calls every single week. There's a ton of resources as far as business resources. You can connect with other people that are in your industry. And lastly, but certainly not least, y'all, like, it's lit because we just all together. So anyway, I know I'm just going into a spiel with that, but I wanted to give y'all that information because it is so good. So join for free for 2 weeks. There's no loss if you don't enjoy it for the first 2 weeks. But we're going to be doing some amazing stuff this year and I'm really excited. Okay. Now that we got that out the way, because I really just had to tell y'all about that. I had to tell y'all about another announcement where February 10th, I will be doing a free class called The 4 Reasons Why Self-Sabotage and Procrastination Are Impacting Your Discipline, Productivity, and Fulfillment. And I'm really excited about that because, of course, all this month and some of next month, y'all will be getting just podcast episodes on productivity, what I've done with clients around productivity, and really hearing a lot of things on that. And so if you're interested, the link is in the show notes. It's a free class. You can come join, hear about all of this. And I'm really excited about it because I really do believe, from working 2 years now with clients, that this is truly what is stopping us from really showing up, being disciplined, having, our productivity be in order, but also just being fulfilled, like enjoying what we're doing, taking things in pace. And I truly think that that is a amazing class. So definitely go to the show notes to sign up. Like I said, it's free, and it's on February 10th at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let's get into the podcast because I've been talking for 7 minutes, child. Okay. So I wanted to talk about this topic because I feel like it is something that I can go into detail about for hours, but I know I don't have that much time. So I wanted to talk today about what is procrastination, what it looks like, the definition of procrastination, and how to overcome it. Because I feel like when we talk about procrastination, we can sometimes talk about it in a very self-imposed way of like, I just procrastinate too much, or I'm a procrastinator, like you identify with it. And I wanted to break it down in a different way because I feel like it's coming from just a mental health background. I think I'm more so understanding and even working with clients where this can stem from. And I'm not talking about the procrastination where you are like avoiding things and you're just, you gotta get something done, you're just avoiding it. But even with that, I want to go into a little bit more detail deeper of where we beat ourselves up about it, because it becomes so hard to then feel confident or feel like you are making strides. Or if you're not feeling like you're consistent, you feel like I'm just a failure, and it becomes so imposing on your identity and who you are. But on the flip side of that, I do want to talk about this constant procrastination that makes you not want to take steps towards anything, where you find that you have these dreams and aspirations, or even just want to start changing and making some different shifts, but there's just a true feeling of I can't do it. So I want to break this down in a way that, again, is not going to be hours, because again, you'll learn a lot of this in the class. But I also really want to talk about, and this is something I teach clients all the time, the truth around procrastination. I did an episode on this. I will link that in the show notes for you to go listen to, but definitely go listen to that podcast. It was probably one of my top 10 podcasts from last year where I talked about the truth around procrastination. But I really want to get into the mindset piece of this. And when I talk about mindset, I'm talking about the way you think about it, the way you approach it. And I really want to look at procrastination more in a way of your feelings and your deepness about the way this is, because a lot of times we approach many things with just you just have to do it, which can be true. And I think that is a choice that people get to. I think that there are people who just have amazing work ethic when it comes to certain things. But I also think for us who are trying to learn what it looks like to work in rest and work in pace, it can often be times where we feel guilty for even putting something down, or if we're not working on it, we feel bad about it. But in going deeper into what this actually looks like, procrastination, in my opinion, doesn't always necessarily mean you're lazy. And I know that that is a very hard topic to think around, but I want to paint a picture for you. I think for us as millennials, because that's primarily my demographic, the people that I serve around in late 30s, early 20, mid 20s, 25 to around 35 is around the age group that I serve. I think I want us to look at the trajectory of what we have been thrusted into. A lot of us maybe grew up with parents who maybe never went to college or did go to college. And so there was this constant push of go be great, go achieve, that it created this mindset that we have to just go do these things. A lot of us made choices around 18, 19 to go to college when we didn't even really know what we wanted to do, child. Then you couple that with having kids, getting married, and then having your time and your lifestyle shifted very quickly. On top of that, we were thrusted into an age of social media where we are constantly bombarded with distraction. And so we're constantly bombarded with, if I'm getting more into a scientific way of thinking about it, we're bombarded with just this dopamine thing where we constantly want to be rewarded for things like likes and comments and all of this stuff, but also the ability to figure out life. A lot of us are high achievers where we want to achieve in things and we're trying to figure it out at the same time, that when we feel like we're not making strides towards that, we automatically tell ourselves we're lazy. We automatically tell ourselves we're not achieving, we're failures. And that's not necessarily true, or we'll label ourselves as procrastinators where we have all these ideas, and then when we don't work on them, we feel like we're bad people or we're not showing up or all this kind of stuff. And in my opinion, this is Roslyn, again, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, sis. That's not always necessarily true. There are different things, especially I talk about this in the class, that impact us really honestly being able to show up. But because we're bombarded with social media where we see all these people, highlight reels, all that kind of stuff, which is, in my opinion, you have to get to a place where you understand that some of that isn't real, but also it's only 15 seconds or a picture of somebody's life. We don't know what somebody's dealing with. We have to understand that it's not always us, more so than the circumstances around us, but also it doesn't mean we're lazy. Like, we get up, we go to work, we do all these things. Sometimes we need to go to therapy to process through trauma and also what may be impacting us self-esteem wise. But also some of this can be an inability to navigate the negative feelings around something. So like, for example, if I want to, let's say, start a business, and I want to be very practical, start a business. Everybody, I think, now understands the positive side of maybe having a side hustle to grow your income and so on and so forth. But starting something a lot of times has a negative feeling around it because you've never done it before. And so you automatically label I'm a procrastinator to yourself because you feel like I can't do this, I'm not showing up. But a lot of times there's fear attached to not wanting to do something. A lot of times there's a lot of self-doubt attached to not wanting to do something. There's a lot of feelings of, what if I try this and I fail? What if I put this out there and no one, likes it? What if I put it out and it does work? There's a lot of feelings around actually succeeding. And so when I talk about the feelings around a task, when you feel these things or feel self-doubt, you're not going to start taking steps towards it because you feel like it's automatically going to fail. And so that's not necessarily like you're a procrastinator, but more so you're having a negative feeling or negative thought process around this, which makes you not want to do something. So I'll switch gears and go to working out because, girl, that is my whole thing. And I've had to learn my process with working out, which I'll tell y'all about. But when it comes to working out, I asked a client about this the other day, and the light bulb went off in my brain, sis. And I probably always use this example, so y'all will hear this from me more often. But I asked her, when you think of somebody that's working out, what do you think of? And she said, somebody that goes to the gym every day. And when I thought about that, I said, yeah, when I'm on TikTok and I'm scrolling and I see these transformations, I'm looking at people who are like toned. Like, it took them years to get them legs and that booty, girl. But it creates this unrealistic expectation that Roslyn ain't got. I don't have no abs, child. Okay. I got flat, period. And so it creates this unrealistic expectation that I got to be in the gym lifting every single day when I haven't got the basics of eating and drinking water and all of this. So my automatic feelings towards going to the gym have been, in the past, I've tried to do those workouts and I'm sore for days and I feel like I can't do this, it's not going to work. And so I have some negative feelings around losing weight, which automatically makes me not want to do it and avoid, which is quote unquote procrastination. There's a lot of feelings of, sometimes feeling like I think, in my opinion, a lot of times we emotionally feel a lot of things that impact our ability to manage time. We have some feelings of low self-esteem, self-doubt, anxiety, and also understanding too that really with the procrastination can be a form of self-sabotage. So it's not necessarily the act of doing procrastination has a lot to do with our mindset and all of those things, which is what I talk about, which makes me different, I feel like, from every other person that talks about productivity or even showing up or doing things, because I always feel like you have to get to the root of things before you can just tell somebody to do something. I always tell clients, I'm big on talking about their lifestyle. Like, I approach time management so differently, I feel like, from other people, because there are some things that aren't conducive to who you are. I had a client who I did a strategy call with I think it was a month ago, and she was a new mom, and she wanted to do, she wanted to make strides towards things, and I absolutely believe she could do it, because I've looked at some of her stuff and I was like, oh my God, it's just so great. But when you have a newborn, especially like around 2 months, it's very challenging to do things because your lifestyle, your time, and what you're doing has shifted. And so sometimes we have to adjust to the transition, but it's not us labeling ourselves as lazy or not showing up. It's truly a lifestyle shift. And so looking at it, it can be, when we look at procrastination, we really have to look at it from the lens of, where is the emotion behind it? What is the form of self-sabotage? What are the things that I'm experiencing? And really understanding we have to really have some forgiveness towards ourselves, some compassion, and reframing. And when I say reframing, our changing of our mindset around this. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper and talk about, with procrastination, really around the mindset around this is really addressing it as the action. I think we kind of self-identify as procrastinators or people that are lazy. And I really want y'all to really work through having compassion for yourself. And I'm going to speak this from a more of a practitioner or clinician or therapist lens. I know I'm talking in real fancy terms, because I want you to really look at this as your action really has everything to do with the way you think about yourself, the way you think about it, or the actual task. Like, for example, girl, I have been trying to read one book a month, and for some strange reason, I don't get it done. But also, too, I think because I've made strides, I have so many books in my house. I know Nico probably is like, if you buy one more book. But I have so many books in my house that I want to read this year that it's just me starting the process. And it's very, very slow. And now I'm like, I'm never going to finish a book. But even with that, I tell myself that, which means, of course, it's not going to get done. And so it's really my thought process towards it. And so I'm going to go a little bit deeper of looking at procrastination is always the reaction to something we're avoiding. In general, let's just give the definition of procrastination. It is the action of delaying or postponing something. The action of delaying or postponing something. And here's the thing about it, and this is also why I approach time management very differently, I feel like, is because high achievers, people who are ambitious, which is usually around the market of the women that I love working with, because we're very ambitious. We are those people that can, we A+ students in school, child. We can pull something out of our brains in a minute. We can solve every problem for anybody and their mama and their auntie and their grandma and their cousin. When it comes to us, we overload ourselves, or we put too much on our plates, or we expect so much of ourselves. And the problem with that is we are habitual procrastinators, because we can do it. It's not an issue. And here's the other thing. I don't ever think the women that I serve is an issue of them showing up. It's just an issue of us in our mindset and really the way we show compassion to ourselves in doing this, which is a very different approach in what we grew up seeing. Because again, we've been told to push, go, run after the things we are given, or we've been given opportunities to do that. We are probably the generation that makes way more money. We're probably the generation that creates more. We're probably the generation that does so many other different things, because we have so many opportunities to do so. But there's also a way higher expectation we put on ourselves, which is not bad. But when it becomes unrealistic and you put in this unrealistic pressure, it causes you to burn out. It causes you to feel depressed if you're not doing something. It causes you to feel very self-doubt of yourself if you don't feel like I'm showing up at the caliber that other people are. And there has to be a layer at some point, because what happens is when we get older, we then look back and we're like, gosh, I wish I could have been kinder to myself. But also there's another coupling of this where some of us are in the age where we're working to do things so that when we get older, we can sit down, because there is a higher energy level when you're young. And so coupling all of these things that I'm thinking about, because these are deep thoughts I have on a random Tuesday in the afternoon. When I talk about actually the action of delaying or postponing something, I'm thinking of intentional procrastination or intentional avoidance. Intentional, when I say intentional, of like, that there's something you want to get done or do, but you don't do it. And this can be as simple as doing laundry, but this can be as high as starting a business or doing something that, or even starting a relationship, like starting dating, starting socializing more, having a tough conversation with your friend, or having a tough conversation where you have to put boundaries in place. There's an action of delaying or postponing it because there's a belief behind, maybe I'm not capable, or can I do this? Which of course I will go into more detail in the class. But I want to talk about why we procrastinate. And a big part of this is it's habitual. It is something that we have done consistently over years. Child, there's some things that I just have done over the years that is just habitual, okay? The need to want to be in control, which is a whole nother conversation. And so I say that to say, like, why we procrastinate is not only that is in the intentional avoidance, but also it is habitual. Sometimes we're overwhelmed, where we have too many things on our plate. I talk about when all the time, I will always say this, when I first had Elijah, I took my licensure exam a month after having a child. I don't think he was even 6 weeks old. And I was breastfeeding and up all night and all of this. And that may not be the reality for other people, but thinking about the switch of the transition of being without a kid to having a kid, the lifestyle shift that has to happen and the transition that has to happen takes time. And sometimes we're so overwhelmed that we can't do things, but we also then avoid all this other stuff that we have because there's so many things on our plate. You also may procrastinate if you have no real plan or you don't plan well. So I talk to my clients a lot about planning because I feel like it is one of the foundational things of showing up, but also it takes so much pressure off of you because you're not remembering things in your brain or all of that. And when you don't plan well, you can't progress in a way because you don't really have any direction. You're just kind of flailing and doing things in your own way. And flailing is very unproductive because you're just going by what's happening and your mind and your emotions are all over the place. And that can be really hard, especially if you're someone that is a planner or has planned in the past. Knowing how to adjust to the lifestyle you have or the transition of the lifestyle you have. Sometimes you can't work in the same way you used to work in the old season. People talk about all the time, like putting new wine in old wineskins. But really what it is like you're trying to adjust in a new season, operating in an old season habits and ways. And sometimes it's just not helpful. And so you got to learn how to adjust and plan well. And so that really goes into habits and routines, which is a whole nother conversation. Thought process and mindset. So your mindset towards an activity or something. I had a lot of clients during the pandemic that were in grad school and even some now. But some of them were talking about how they struggled with just doing their homework and all of those things. And it really came down to sometimes proper planning, but also their mindset towards it. They just were like, I don't feel like it. What is the point of me finishing grad school? I don't understand this. This is not helpful. Why am I even doing this? And a lot of times in the process, your thought process towards something can become so negative that you don't want to do it. There's also a thing of why we procrastinate with having a lack of boundaries. We don't know how to properly put boundaries in place and or rely on accountability to help us. And so boundaries become a thing where it's just a whole nother conversation, but boundaries can really impact you being able to show up because again, you're trying to operate in an old way using the old habits that don't serve you in the way that you're supposed to. Or even I won't even say supposed to, or in a way they don't serve you into where you are right now. And so having proper boundaries, you may not be able to say yes to everything. You may not be able to show up in the way that you may want to in the past for other people, because now you have so many other responsibilities that don't serve you well. And other responsibilities that you're managing, that doing all these other things, sitting on the phone for 2 hours, I'll tell my friends in a minute, if it's a text message, I probably won't reply back for a week. But it's a voice memo, I probably could reply back quicker. Okay, girl. Because I remember when I've heard my friend's voice or something of that nature. And so again, my phone goes on do not disturb during the day, because I know that if I don't, I will be on the phone with friends. So send me a voice memo and girl, we'll talk through there. But like, that's a boundary for me. That was a whole nother tangent for something else. But lastly, procrastination can connect to a lot of self-sabotage. And so I know I'm kind of like, and I talked about self-sabotage last week, but I want y'all to go listen to that episode about the truth about procrastination, because I go into more detail about the emotional awareness behind it. And I really do want you to think about, for yourself emotionally, or even you, here's the other thing. I know a lot of people don't really talk about their emotions. They don't maybe explore that, or even have an awareness of emotional identity and like what that even looks like. Because again, I think we avoid this naturally because it's uncomfortable. It's not fun. It's not fun to explore this. I've been having a lot of conversations with clients that when they deal with this, they're like, I understand now why I avoid. I had a client actually who I worked with pretty much from November. I want to say from like November to, I think we just offboarded in January. I loved working with her because I really found that she had so many different things going on. She was in grad school. But not only that, she just really did not understand why she couldn't manage her time. She thought like, girl, I just really didn't know what was going on. I wasn't managing no time. I didn't have any of that. And what we talked about was just really her understanding the avoidance piece, where she was at also seasonally, that impacted her way to show up. And so she always talked about how so much of the information I provided her helped her. But she literally, one of the questions I asked her, and what I asked every client, is, do you have a better understanding of how you react emotionally when you want to give up or get overwhelmed? And her words to me were, yes, I do have a better understanding. I avoid and I shut down, and that is something I'm working on. Most people don't know their reaction to shutting down or avoiding or procrastinating, or self-scrolling or self-soothing by scrolling on social media or doing all these other things, is a reaction to shutting down and avoiding, because they don't want to do these things. But when you have a better understanding, you know then, and you have the tools, you know then what to do to switch it. And that's what I always try to teach clients is, my goal with you is long-term, you have an awareness and you have the tools to then move in that awareness. You may not fix it in the first month of working with me or 2 months of working with me, but even after you work with me, you'll see it. I had a friend who I worked with who was a friend, and then she was a client, but she worked with me. I want to say she did my long program when I was working, when I did Show Up Sis, quote unquote, when it wasn't Show Up Sis, back in, I want to say it was like late 2020. But she basically had told me, she texted me one day and said, I just want to let you know everything we did together, those sessions with you in 2020 is and are bearing fruit this year. Your influence is so helpful. And just to hear somebody who I worked with almost 2 years ago say the things that we were talking about helped her, because again, it's really about, y'all, the emotional awareness. And when you can get that piece down, you can then have the better understanding of how to then move past all those things to show up better for yourself. And it takes time. It's not overnight. So if this is something you like can hear, if you're relating to this, you're finding you're getting some light bulbs go off and you really need help with this, please sign up for the free class on February 10th. At 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll talk about this more in detail, because again, I could talk about procrastination for hours, because I geek out, which is sad to say. I geek out over like emotional things because, I'm a therapist. But also, I think it just, again, gives a deeper understanding as to why we don't show up, and giving yourself some grace. It's more than just fear. It's more than that. It's more than just fear. There is fear because there is some level of, self-sabotage, but also in a way too, there are some things that are, that just stop our processes at times, and that's okay. So I want to give you some tools on that day for that class, and I want to give you some things that you can think about and have some value for. So if this was helpful for you, please share it with a friend. Go ahead, if you are listening on Apple iTunes, take a couple of minutes, maybe even 60 seconds, and go scroll down to your phone and leave me a review. I love, love, love hearing from y'all. I'm also thinking about adding a segment into my podcast around mental health for questions, like listener questions. I've been really thinking about it because I know a lot of people have some very specific questions and want to talk about specific topics that I myself may be may not know that y'all want to talk about. So I'm probably going to be adding like a questionnaire probably in the next month. I'm not going to probably do it until March because I know I have so many things on my plate, but I really want to add that in. So be on the lookout for that probably sometime in March. I have some amazing things coming up for y'all this month or next month and in March as well. I'm so excited for this year. And so if you have any questions, just please let me know. I love y'all. Slide in my DMs, sis. Let me know how you doing. Follow me on Instagram, as well as just continue to share the podcast. And I love you. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week and day. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.